Trudy Mason sitting in for Elias for the rest of the week, and we're turning our attention to the high-speed rail project. We've been talking about it recently because the Parti Québécois is promising that if elected, it would end Quebec's involvement in the project. Now, there are some questions about some of the demands that the PQ was saying, oh, they're going to give us the $40 billion it would have gone into, who knows? But there certainly have been objections raised about the project that merit looking at. And I think the most vocal critics have been the people who own agricultural land to the north of Montreal, whose land would be crossed by the high-speed train and what that would mean for them, for agriculture, for wildlife, and more. Also, questions about the cost, because how much will this end up costing? We know that government in general is not great about setting a budget and sticking to it. Will it cost $200 billion? Will it cost more? All of those things. And will it be a benefit for the population? Here to help us is someone who has looked into this in depth. He is a professor at the Haute Études Commerciales, that's the big business school here in Quebec, the HEC. He is one of the co-authors of a big report on the high-speed rail proposal. Jacques Roy, thank you for joining us on CJAD.
Thank you. Good morning.
Tell us about the main summary of your study.
Well, to start with, when you consider projects that important in terms of infrastructure, the first thing you need to do is to conduct the cost-benefit analysis. And the only data we have is the data provided by the Alto corporation that is sponsoring the project. And as you mentioned, the cost estimate ranges between $60 and $90 billion. And these numbers were based on comparative trains in Europe and elsewhere. When I look at the most recent TGV between Bordeaux and Toulouse, the project, it comes to about $112 billion if you extrapolate this cost to the Canadian TGV project, or high-speed rail project. So you can expect that this is going to cost more than the $90 billion projected by Alto. Also, as we all know, most of the construction projects end up costing more, and that's everywhere on Earth, and especially when it comes to trains and tunnels and projects like that, you can expect a cost increase by 20, 30, 40%. So it's going to be very costly. And if you look at the benefits, again, according to Alto's documentation, the benefits to users, that is the time saved, the money you save because you take the train instead of your car, the risk of accidents, the environmental costs, if you take all of that, it amounts to $48 billion over a 40-year period. So you have minimum cost of $90 billion and a benefit of $48 billion. So, when I look at these numbers, I fail to see why we would want to venture into such a project, since it will not be profitable socially. And the benefits are based on optimistic projections of ridership. Alto projects that there will be something like 23, 24 million passengers a year in 2050. Now, a recent study by McGill researchers, they did a market research, and their result is more like 9.7 million passengers. So there's quite a spread between the two projections. And so that's why we're concerned, and there's a lot of other issues to be resolved before we can see a high-speed rail between Quebec and Toronto.
If I'm not mistaken, your report was commissioned by the Farmers Union.
No, it was not, actually. It was presented during the press conference, but it's a study we did on our own without any financing, and actually it was presented at the Canadian Transportation Research Forum annual conference in Halifax last month. So we've been working on this paper for several months now, and without any subsidy at all.
Do you think we should be looking at other projects? We've been hearing a lot about how, the farmers, for example, have said instead of building an entirely new corridor for high-speed rail, why don't we look at our existing corridors and just make the trains better, like make the departures more frequent and have better service? Would that be viable in your view?
Yes, it would, and that's our point. We think that this alternative solution was discarded much too soon. This high-frequency rail project has been around for about 7 or 8 years now, and it would cost much less money, and it would improve service, especially frequency, but also the reliability, because the train would run on their own tracks, so you'd have dedicated tracks for passenger transportation. So you would not have to fight your way with freight trains, And this solution is cheaper because you don't have to run trains at 300 kilometers per hour. At that speed, 300, you need to have very straight lines. You have to build fences around the tracks. You cannot have overpasses, So it's very expensive to build a high-speed rail, and we don't think you need it. When you look at specific corridors, like between Montreal and Ottawa, between Montreal and Quebec City, the time you gain with a high-speed rail is quite small. Actually, it's 19 minutes that you would gain compared to a high-frequency rail project. So this half an hour or 20 minutes, you can use this time during your trip on the train. You can work, you can rest. And the idea is as long as the train service is competitive with cars, then people will use it. But if the train service, like it is now, is not reliable, is kind of slow, then people would probably prefer to drive their car. But even with the actual relatively poor service that Via Rail is providing, there are still quite a few passengers every year.
Professor Roy, let me ask you just briefly, did you do the cost comparison? What, if they're talking at least $100 billion for high speed, possibly more, probably more, we know, compared to high frequency in the existing rail corridor, how do those costs compare?
Well, that's the issue. We would like a study to be conducted to identify those costs properly. Right now, Alto claims that it would cost almost as much to build the high-frequency rail than the high-speed rail. And I don't understand how they come to this conclusion, because with the high-speed rail, you have to expropriate, and this is why the farmers are so angry. But if you use the existing corridors, you don't have to expropriate. And if you run trains at 160 kilometers per hour, you still can have overpasses, and you can do this safely. So you don't necessarily get to destination as fast, but you get there fast enough, and you would save a lot of money. But I cannot tell you how much. The last estimate we have from Via Rail goes back 5 years ago. They were expecting to build it for $12 billion. So let's say the cost have doubled. It would be around $25 billion today, compared to $120 billion. So there's quite a gap between the two. And that's why, we think that the government should put this project on hold and spend enough time to look at this other alternative. And I know in Ontario, people advocate other types of high-frequency rail routes, along the 401, for example. So there are several other alternatives that we can look at.
Professor Roy, thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you.
Professor Jacques Roy of the HEC, one of the co-authors of the report on the high-speed rail proposal.
Pride is like love. You feel it in your heart. iHeartRadio, Canada's #1 streaming app for radio and podcasts, including iHeart Pride Canada, your favorite hits and must-have party bangers, plus personalized and curated playlists like Back in the Day Pride.
Come together, celebrate love.
Take Pride with you, anytime, anywhere. Just ask your smart speaker to play iHeart Pride Canada. Stream us on your phone or listen now at iHeartRadio.ca.